Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. It's your host, Matt Zahab. We are buzzing as always, and I am super pumped to have today's guest on the show. We've been trying to get this lad on for an absolute hot minute, and we finally got him on, the one and only Stephen Goldfeder, the CEO of Offchain Labs, a key blockchain innovator who developed Arbitrum. Of course, we will touch a little bit about Offchain Labs on this pod, but this will be mostly about Arb, as you guys are, I assume most of you are huge fans of Arbitrum. And why? Because it is the largest and most advanced Ethereum tech stack, the biggest L2 in the game. And he also authored Bitcoin and cryptocurrency technologies and pioneered multi-party computation, shaping the future of blockchain interaction for consumers and institutions alike. A true crypto goat. Stephen, welcome to the show, my friend. Pumped to have you on. How you doing this lovely afternoon?
Great to be here. So thank you for having me. And yes, it's a wonderful afternoon. Excited to talk about all things blockchains and Arbitrum.
Let's jump right into it. I mean, look, we'll jump right into the Arb stuff. Normally, I like to learn a little bit about the guests, but I've been waiting for this one for a hot minute. I'm a big Arbitrum fan myself. I remember when you guys first came out, and I was like, oh, here we go. Another group of dudes and gals think they're going to create some awesome L2. Like, what the hell do these guys know? I couldn't have been more friggin' wrong. So I got to give you my flowers when they are due, where it's due, when it's due. I owe you an apology. When you guys first came out, I'm like, these guys, you know how it's the same song and dance, right, Steven? Everyone thinks they're going to be the next big thing. You guys literally did it. So kudos, huge shout out. A tweet came out this week, and that was Arbitrum passed base on Nansen usage metrics last week while maintaining an $18 billion TVL. It's the first L2 to hit stage 1 maturity for 2 consecutive years. I just want to start off by talking about the growth. Did you guys ever think that you'd get this big in this short of a time? Like, it's got to be pretty friggin' amazing, no?
We always knew that the technology was important, and we thought that it had massive potential, but I don't think that any of us thought that, forgetting about Arbitrum, even zooming out to Ethereum and zooming out to crypto as a whole, we get this big, this quickly, and actually have mainstream adoption, which we see today across many verticals. So the answer is definitely not. And actually, if you look back where Arbitrum came from, so it was when I was at Princeton together with Ed and Harry, my co-founders. That's where the initial academic project came from. And really, Ed was the one who had the idea initially back in 2013. And if you go back on YouTube and look for the very first video mention of Arbitrum, you'll find a 2014 class project where Ed was leading a project of undergrads, even before my involvement. And the funny thing is, actually, that's before Ethereum even existed. So we came at it very much from an academic perspective, saying, hey, there's this really cool thing called smart contracts. And, we think they're going to be interesting and potentially have the ability to revolutionize many, many different industries. But we also understand that the proposed way of doing them is not going to scale. You can't have everyone verifying everything else on a model with the blockchain. And that's where we came from. But to answer your question, no, we literally, from Ed, even from when I got involved back in 2017, these were really mostly theories on paper and had not proven any meaningful adoption. So the idea that we'd get to scale and get there so quickly was very, very, far off. And, again, we believed in it. We believed in the power of the technology. I guess the surprising thing was that really everyone else, got to believe in this as quickly as well as they did. And that here we are. It seems like a long time, actually not that long. We've been in the company about 6.5 years, and, the ecosystem is mature, and we have some of the biggest brands in the world launching blockchain applications on Arbitrum.
Literally such a household name. I have obviously never built anything even remotely close to what you and the team have done at Arb, but maybe just for the builders, for the entrepreneurs who dream of building an incredible company and ecosystem and community like Arbitrum, any tips, piece of advice, things you wish you did differently? Again, there's been hundreds, if not friggin' thousands of L2s that have been launched, and no one has done what you guys have done. What were some of those secret sauce ingredients that helped you guys get to where you are today? I know it's a tough question, but if you got anything that you can share, that'd be an absolute treat.
I think the thing that I'd say is always keep true to your values and the reasons why you're here and the reasons why you're building it. And this is where I've seen so many, people across the years really start to, I would say, fumble and maybe people can lose sight, right? So if you think about where we are, what are we doing here? We're building a decentralized, vision of the future, a decentralized vision of the internet, decentralized finance, but also decentralizing gaming and actually, many other industries as well, in a way that it's democratized, it's owned by the people, it's open, it's permissionless, anyone can innovate, there's no central gatekeepers. And actually keeping true to those values, I think, is the most important things, that we as a company did, and we as an ecosystem in Arbitrum today. And what I mean by that is, there's a spectrum of what it means to decentralize. So not everyone has to agree with us that it has to be, fully the Ethereum way, which is what we believe, and like decentralization maxis. You can have other points on the line that you think are, okay and better trade-offs, and that's fine to have that argument. But whatever you believe, to actually stay true to that belief, and not actually have a technical IOU and say, hey, okay, one day we'll build out a decentralized system, but we're going to start off more centralized.
Yeah.
Because if we're just replacing one centralized system with another centralized system, certain individuals might benefit from that, but the world won't. And there's no reason that we're here doing that. And I didn't, spend my time in graduate school and, my career thus far building the system just to replace one set of centralized actors with another. So, we were fortunate when we launched Arbitrum that we had both done it correctly and actually built it out, but also we were early and really the first ones to build out a layer 2. And so we didn't really have to think about compromising. But I think, and this is true for any industry you're in, but particularly in Web3 and anywhere on the stack, you could be building an application, you can be building a chain, you can be building core infrastructure, really staying true to the values of decentralization and saying, am I making the world better? Is this better than the centralized alternatives? Why am I here? And I think that's been, extremely helpful for us in keeping us on track. And even if it's not the easiest thing, even if we say, hey, we can get the product out, 6 months earlier or a year earlier. I'll tell you one story, where this came to light, because a similar concept is like fairness and openness. I mean, that's what we're doing here. When Arbitrum launched in 2021, we actually had initially the open mainnet launch for developers in May of that year. And then it wasn't until August, actually the last day of August, that we opened up Arbitrum for everyone. So there was this, several month period where only builders and only developers, and we were pretty open who we allowed on. But any project, with people actually trying to build something, were let on. The philosophy was, if you're opening up a new amusement park, you should probably build the rides before you let the people in, right? So there was a new chain, but we want to actually have things to do there. July rolled around that year, and there were some teams that said, okay, hey guys, we're ready to go. We're ready. Like, let us in, open up, let the users in. Like, our ride is ready. But we said, hey, but look around the amusement park. The other rides aren't ready yet. Let's give everyone a fair chance to compete. And it can't go on forever. We give everyone just like several months, to do that. And actually, when Arbitrum went live, I'll take the DEX example. Uniswap went live together with Arbitrum on layer 2. SushiSwap went live. And another small exchange went live that day as well, called Swapper. And you may not have heard of Swapper, but our approach was open and innovative and permissionless for everyone. And if Uniswap's going to win on layer 2, that's going to be because they executed the best on layer 2, not because we said, hey, we're going to let you in first or roll out the centralized red carpet for you. And that's, been core to the Arbitrum ethos all along, which is the infrastructure is neutral. The infrastructure is there for everyone. It's fair, it's permissionless, it's open for everyone to innovate on, and it's really a meritocracy in who succeeds there. And, we don't believe in there being centralized gatekeepers, not the old centralized gatekeepers, and not us or the Arbitrum Foundation or the DAO as a new set of centralized gatekeepers, really open and permissionless for everyone to build new and innovative applications.
Wow, what a riff there. And that theme park analogy was world class. You're on a roll here, Stephen. The name.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
No, I think to give credit, I think it was the Bankless folks that originally came up with the theme park analogy. I've extended it a bit there, but I remember back in 2021, they were very into the theme park analogy.
I love that. The name, what was the driving factor? Any innuendos, any nuances behind the name? Like, did you guys have any other names, or from day one, was it just like, we're going to name this shit Arbitrum? This is going to be the shit.
So going back to the history, the name Arbitrum actually predated, and this was when Ed was involved in the project before I got involved. So I'm kind of giving bits and pieces, but let's just go back there for a second. So there was that 2014 class project where Ed ran the project really with several undergrads, and he was, it's his idea that was being built out by several students in this class. The class was taught by my advisor was Arvind Narayanan. And then Ed went off to the White House. So Ed was the senior advisor to President Obama and deputy CTO of the United States for the last 2 years of the Obama administration.
Wow.
But after the 2016 election, after the new administration in 2017, Ed came back to Princeton. And at that point, Harry and I knocked on Ed's door and said, hey, that Arbitrum thing you built out a couple of years ago, kind of sat on the shelf. Let's actually build this out right as a graduate level project. And again, it wasn't a commercial endeavor at that point, but let's build this out right and do research and actually build out the full thing. So we did that for the next 2 years. We built this out and actually published a paper, an academic paper on Arbitrum. And was the summer of 2018 when we published the paper, also when I graduated Princeton, when we decided, okay, let's actually do this, commercialize this, and build this out as a company. And the thought process there was, we realized how complex this was, and despite how far we'd come, we understood that actually getting this to a product on mainnet and serving real users and billions of dollars of value was going to still need a lot of work. And there were a lot of shortcuts that people might take. And we said, we don't want it. We want to do this ourselves. We want to do this right. So that's where we did that. But anyway, back to your question, that's the context. The name actually comes from that era where Ed was working in it before I was involved with it. But the interesting anecdote is you always kind of think you have more adoption than you do. So the paper was named Arbitrum. And then I remember sitting down when we launched the company saying, okay, so should we continue with the name that we put on our academic paper, Arbitrum, or should we maybe like use a different name? I don't know. And we're like, no, like we have way too much adoption today to change the name. And in reality, looking back, it's kind of funny. Like, yeah, a bunch of academic researchers in our peer group knew what Arbitrum was. Definitely, we could have changed the name at that point if we wanted to. But the truth is, I like the name Arbitrum. But it's just like reflecting back on that, like, back in the day, like our bubble at that point was the academic community where Arbitrum was well known from our paper. And we're like, yeah, we definitely couldn't change that anymore. But of course, looking back, that seems silly. But I like the name Arbitrum. But where does it come from? A lot of people think it comes from the word arbitrary, which is not the case. Some people think it comes from the term arbitrage, which is also not the case.
That was my bet.
Comes,
that was my bet.
yes, I've seen those two a lot. They actually come from the word arbitration. And the idea is, if you think about what a layer 2 protocol is, it's a set of optimistic claims. And then there are these validators that can go ahead and make claims and challenge. And really, the blockchain is the referee that arbitrates between them and tells you what the truth is. In practice, this doesn't usually happen. The disputes don't happen. But that's where the name comes from. The truth is, I think it's actually good that most people don't know where the name comes from. Because, again, looking back, one lesson that I learned is we were focused on the wrong aspect of the system, right? Like we were focused on the part of the system that happens if someone cheats and things go wrong and how it fixes itself. Now, that's a very important part of the system. But if I'm like launching a product, it might not be where I go and say, hey, let's call imagine it's like, okay, let's call the United States court. No, there's a court system which exists, but that's not like why we're here. And that's, I think, but the good news is we didn't actually call it arbitration. We called it Arbitrum. No one really knows what that name is anyway. It's just become a name that, means what it is. It means Arbitrum. So I think the name has served it very well, but that's actually the etymology of the term.
That's so good. Let's talk about layer 2s here. Stephen, I'd love for you to give a quick just sort of synopsis. Maybe just dump your thoughts all over the place on the current state of L2s and jump into the future of L2s. What do you think that whole sort of ecosystem looks like? And then I have some great follow-ups on top of that. But I'd love to know your thoughts on the current state of L2s and what you might think the future of L2s look like.
So I'm a big believer in L2s. I guess that's not too surprising. And I think we've come a very long in Ethereum's roll-up-centric roadmap, where Ethereum is this super decentralized, super secure base layer, but it doesn't scale by itself to fit the world's applications. And that's actually by design, because we know that there's a fundamental trade-off between scalability and decentralization and security. So we go really, really heavy on layer 1 for decentralization and security. And then we have to scale out layer 2. And we build chains like Arbitrum where you can actually get that scale, but still leverage Ethereum security and decentralization. So I think layer 2 roadmap has been a fantastic one that, Vitalik articulated in 2020. So, over 4 years ago today, and it was October of 2020. And I think that we've done a great job building it out, but I also, continue to think today, just as I did a year ago, just as I did 5 years ago, that this is the correct way to build blockchains. And if you look at other examples, modularity is generally the right approach to scale. That's true for the internet, where we build in multiple layers. That's true in really just about any complex system, that defining modular pieces and having each piece, giving each piece the ability to update itself and innovate and change itself, become the most scalable and most sustainable way for both scaling, but also innovation. Let me talk about that second piece, innovation. So Arbitrum is more than Arbitrum 1. There's Arbitrum Orbit, which encapsulates Arbitrum 1, but there's also now the ability for other teams to launch their own chains using the Arbitrum stack. Today, there's about 100 plus chains in development using the Arbitrum stack. About 65, 70 of them have, I believe at this point, publicly announced. And you can go to the Arbitrum portal and look at some of those names, who those chains are. And think about a world, and all these chains, some of them are layer 2s, some of them are layer 3s, but fundamentally, they can be secured by Ethereum either directly or indirectly. Now, think about a world where each of these chains had to, run its own consensus, right? Think about how complicated that would be a couple of years ago. So we at Offchain Labs, besides for, being core contributors to Arbitrum, we also build Prism, which is the layer one consensus client. So it's the most used consensus client for Ethereum. If you're running an Ethereum validator or staking Ethereum, you're probably using Prism. And so our team was very involved in the merge when Ethereum moved from proof of work to proof of stake. Now imagine that there's like an event like that today, right? And there's 100 plus layer twos on Ethereum today. Imagine though, if each of these layer twos, if it was not modular, it was monolithic, and each of these blockchains implemented their own consensus. So you'd have to do this process 100 times, where every one of these chains would have to go ahead and move from proof of work to proof of stake.
It'd be a
In
nightmare.
practice, it would be a nightmare. And you know what actually happened when Ethereum moved to proof of stake? How did Arbitrum move to proof of stake? The answer is it did nothing. It just inherited that from Ethereum. It did literally nothing because that's modularity. Arbitrum innovates at its layer, and Ethereum, provides its decentralized and secure consensus, and it feeds that to Arbitrum, and it could feed that to now hundreds of chains, and it's already feeding that to many, many, many different layer twos today. And the reason why that's even more interesting because it becomes a hotbed for innovation. Arbitrum recently shipped Arbitrum Stylus, which gives you the ability to write smart contracts not only in the EVM languages, but in Rust and C and C++. All this is all live in Arbitrum mainnet today. So now Ethereum is supporting its security, its decentralization is supporting Arbitrum, which actually has more feature sets than Ethereum, a larger feature set, a more expansive developer toolkit than Ethereum itself. If we look at other chains that are building either today and in the future, but just to, call out some examples of great innovation, you have chains that are really for cultural communities building on Arbitrum, like Ape Chain for Bored Ape Yacht Club and Anime.com for Azuki. They're building their chains. You have chains that are doing deep technical customizations. A good example is Phoenix, FHENAX. FHE is fully homomorphic encryption, where Phoenix is building a chain with privacy baked in using advanced cryptography. And you can think about other chains as well. There are institutional chains like Plume and Millicent and Kinto building on Arbitrum as well. And the nice thing is all of these chains are able to innovate in different ways, some from branding and community, some in deep technical cryptographic ways, some are doing things for institutions, adding KYC. It doesn't really matter, but they're all able to use that same base Ethereum security, sometimes through Arbitrum as layer 3, sometimes from Ethereum directly. You're able to leverage Ethereum's properties. And again, for Orbit chains, each chain has to make its own decisions and customizations, to make sure they actually are leveraging that security, but it's available to them should they want to use Ethereum security. And that's like really, really powerful. So now you can have one Ethereum that now supports not only 100 different chains, but 100 different visions of what the future should look like. And if you think about a monolithic environment, you might be able, even if you believe that centralization is okay and you can scale via centralization, you're not going to get 100 different developer environments. You're not going to get
No
100
chance.
different visions of what you can do, all for the price of one Ethereum consensus. And that is so, so, so powerful. So I think people often focus on the scalability aspect of layer twos. And I think that that's fantastic. And that's enough. If there was just that, I'd still believe in layer two, but also innovation, right? We know what blockchains look like today. We don't know what they'll look like tomorrow. We don't know what they'll look like in 10 years from now. And what I can tell you is there are builders today in the Arbitrum ecosystem that are doing things that are so radically different using the Arbitrum technology stack. And they're saying, hey, we believe that in the future, there will be a large number of privacy chains or a large number of whatever they believe the future should look like. And they have the ability to do that on Ethereum, leveraging Ethereum's consensus, leveraging Arbitrum's technology stack, and innovating in a way that's just not possible in a monolithic environment.
You obviously did a million times better job than I do, but whenever I'm speaking to my Web2 friends, my normie friends, family friends, network, whoever it might be, and they always ask me, Maddie, what are L2s? I often point them in your direction, and I will, maybe fire up something on ChatGPT just to make it a little easier and nicely formatted for them. And I just say it takes all the best parts of Ethereum, gets rid of all the worst parts of Ethereum, and there's your beautiful L2 like Arb, where you can build pretty much whatever you want. It's fast as hell. It's scalable. And the big word I always use, you used the word innovation. Steve and I always use the word usability. Like it's way more usable than ETH. Would you say that's sort of one of the main ethos points of this whole thing?
Yeah, and I didn't touch on that, but it's a great point as well. One thing that Arbitrum offers users is really fast confirmations. So the confirmations in Arbitrum
Yes.
are actually not only the fastest among layer twos, but also the fastest among any blockchain. Arbitrum, the public chains run at 250 millisecond confirmation times. There are
Wow.
orbit chains using the Arbitrum stack that are actually running even faster. I think Rhea is running at 100 milliseconds. And,
That's
this
wild.
is, most of our competitors are measured in seconds. 2 seconds is a common number. And this matters for a lot of reasons. So let's walk through it. One is just for like efficiency. So the Uniswap has a paper out from their research team showing that DEX efficiency, LP profits and arbitrage opportunities are much, much more attractive with faster block times, with faster Oracle updates, etc. I think actually one of the reasons why perps and derivatives took off on Arbitrum, where they had to take on off previously on Ethereum, one is the cost of these protocols, but also two is, again, the frequency of Oracle updates, which matters a lot. So there's an efficiency from a product perspective, but there's also, if we think about who the users are, there's, big wins for UX there, right? So let's talk about gaming. Gaming is an up and coming vertical. Arbitrum is doing a ton of gaming. There are so many fantastic orbit chains. There's Zai, there's Proof of Plays, Pirate Nation, both great games, and many. Well, Zai is a gaming platform. Pirate Nation is a fantastic game. Many others in the Arbitrum ecosystem as well. And one of the reasons I think Arbitrum is so well suited for gaming is this reason, is the fact that it gives you an excellent user experience. It's fast, and it's kind of what you expect like Web 2. If I go to Google and I look up, search some term, and I don't get a response in like 100 milliseconds, I get frustrated and like press enter again,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And actually, we as, people that like Ethereum and like the blockchain, we kind of have a tolerance for a little, slower response time, because like I'll go and I'll do something in my wallet and I'll expect that spinner to show up, for 10 seconds or whatever it is on Ethereum. And that's fine. It's kind of just expected. And actually, the first wave of blockchain games, if you go back to 2017 or so, they were really bad games. But they were exciting because the community and the audience that they were positioned for was us, people that like the blockchain. So we weren't being like, oh my God, this is an amazing game, and like I'm playing it on Ethereum, that's exciting. We were saying, wow, I'm playing a game on Ethereum. That is really cool. I love Ethereum,
Yeah.
and now I can use it as a game. But as we grow, if you look at who are the users that these games are targeting today, who are the players that they're going after, it's not just me and you and people that are in our small community. These are, top gaming studios today that are building games. Ubisoft is building a game on Arbitrum, for example, as well. There are top tier AAA studios that are building games on Arbitrum today. Ubisoft is a great example of a top team building on Arbitrum, a game on Arbitrum today. And they're targeting users that are not necessarily crypto native. So you can't tell these users, here's a great game. By the way, every time you do something, the spinner is going to show up. It's going to be slow. And by the way, it's expensive too. Make sure you put in a lot of money because your wallet's going to keep getting drained. You need low costs and you need super fast, like Web 2 like execution speeds. And that's what Arbitrum provides you. And I think that's why Arbitrum is so successful in gaming as well, because it takes away that UX barrier. And if we want to grow past our own community to a community of people that aren't necessarily as excited about the blockchain as we are, that they're willing to take the UX gain, we have to be in a do no harm, only add benefit regime. And the way that we can do that basically is by saying, okay, you're going to have your game. And if you just want to play a good game, it's going to feel as good as every other game. But if you're also interested in owning your own assets and actually openly innovating and maybe building experiences with the same assets on chain, et cetera, all the benefits that blockchain gaming can bring you, exporting your assets, et cetera, we can also provide that. But if you're making the experience worse for all users to add some benefit, it's not gonna end very well, and you're not gonna ever get that mainstream adoption of users that includes users who do care about crypto and users who don't care. And that's the nice thing about Arbitrum. It doesn't compromise on the user experience. You can have a fantastic user experience. So even those gamers who just want to be gamers are gonna say, wow, that was a great game. It didn't cost me a lot of money. And also it was super fast and the UX didn't seem laggy or weird or different than any other game I play. And then for the class of users that want to go deeper and explore, hey, why is this game even better and even cooler because it's on chain? Wow, there's this other set of features that I can use too, but not to the detriment of those other users.
We got that for you too. Steven, you're on a roll here, my friend. We do need to take a quick break, give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show. And when we get back, we are going to keep buzzing on everything Arbitrum and L2 related. Until then, huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends and sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love the team at Prime XBT. is they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to take advantage of this offer and receive 50% direct deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Steven. You have been on an absolute roll. One thing that I would love you to touch on, and I know you did a little bit, but just to sort of take a deeper dive into this, is Arbitrum's sort of just behemoth lead in regards to DeFi and just the partners that you guys get. Like it seems like every week there's just an absolute blue chip name that comes on board. Robinhood, Paxos, you name it, just absolutely buzzing in the DeFi space. Any long-term sort of new partnerships coming out? And I know there's been some stuff on Twitter popping off, but I'd love you to talk about just sort of the big lead you guys have in the DeFi space and the innovations that you're doing to move and groove in DeFi.
DeFi is a super important vertical to us at Offchain Labs. I know it's one that the Arbitrum Foundation and DAO also believe is, critical and, really to many synonymous with Arbitrum's success. Arbitrum's first initial lead was in DeFi. Arbitrum's initial adoption was definitely predominantly in DeFi. And even today, Arbitrum is the home of DeFi and the home of DeFi innovation, I'll say. When someone's doing something that's not like copycat, but that's new and interesting in DeFi, they're often going to want to be in the Arbitrum ecosystem. And we see a ton of new and interesting products come there. And I think one of the reasons, again, back to what we spoke earlier about the fair launch and the ethos of the community, it's a very collaborative and open community. And that's really what DeFi is. It's about taking your, building block, your Lego, and saying, hey, how does this fit and build on top of these other experiences? How can I combine these pieces into new ways and tap into a pool here and build something that's net new and different? And, there's a technology that enables you to do that, but it's also the community that's collaborative, that's opening and inviting for DeFi builders. And we're seeing a lot of that today. And the interesting thing that I'll say is we're also seeing, as you touched on, a lot of traditional financial institutions come on board and say, hey, we also want to be a part of this. We also want to launch our products there. Some, names you mentioned, BlackRock, Franklin Templeton is another really good example of a really, established firm with their funds. They're bringing them on chain. And there are many, many others that are also bringing their products on chain with Arbitrum. You mentioned, obviously, the partnership that the Arbitrum Foundation has with Robinhood as well is another good example of, all areas of finance that are coming here. And I think one theme that I like to think, that I'm sort of super interested in now is we talk about like DeFi and we like to say TradFi as two separate things, but I think ultimately our success will be unifying these two. And when I go and I speak to someone that works on Wall Street and I say to them, what do you do? They'll never say to me, I work on off-chain finance or I work on centralized finance, right? Like that doesn't happen. I work in finance. And I actually think that, we have to lose our adjectives in some sense and realize that DeFi is not this thing that needs to be qualified, but it's actually becoming more and more and more a part of and an important part of and an increasingly integral part of mainstream finance. And we're going to continue to see that over the course of the next years. I think this is true across many, many verticals as well, gaming as well. It doesn't have to be on-chain gaming, it's gaming. And I was at the gaming developer conference last year in San Francisco, and blockchain gaming was a big part of it. So, but back to DeFi, I think we're going to see a merge of really DeFi and traditional finance into just finance. A lot of this is going to come with, new regulatory clarity that I think many are hoping and expecting will come, relatively soon. And what I can tell you is that there are a lot of, really established builders and really incredible teams with incredible products outside of crypto today that are looking closely at DeFi and saying, how do we become a part of this? How do we merge the old and the new? And how do we, expose our users to some of the real benefits that come from, on-chain products? So that's where I think, we're going to continue to grow. I think we'll continue to see a lot of blockchain crypto native DeFi, and that's incredible and important and will continue to be important. But I also think the very fact that these institutions are seeing this and excited by it is just a validation of everything that we've been doing for the past several years. So Arbitrum, we like to call it the home of DeFi, and we're definitely seeing things warming up. People are more interested in DeFi today than they have been in a long time, and I think that will only continue to accelerate as time goes on.
Stephen, what an episode. This was an absolute treat, and I definitely have some homework to do, and you were dropping knowledge bombs left, right, and center, and we love you for that and appreciate you coming on. Before you get to plug yourself and, of course, Arbitrum, any news that's popping off? I know you mentioned Stylus, which was the tech for developers. You mentioned Tandem, the incubation program for blockchain development. Is there anything else you would like to mention? And mind you, this episode will air a week after you and I are recording. Anything else you'd like to plug? Any big news announcements, so on and so forth, before we let you go today?
Yeah, I think those are two of the most important ones, which is Stylus is such a new and important and I think critical tool set for the future. Because if you look at the set of developers today, there are about 20 to 30,000 Solidity developers. There are about 3 million Rust developers. There are about 12 million C, C++ developers.
Wow.
And we always like to say, and I actually like to say, in order to bring on the next billion users, we have to first onboard the next million developers. Well, 6 weeks ago, there weren't a million developers who could write an Arbitrum contract. There were a couple of tens of thousands, but Stylus actually gave the world's developers, the Web 2 developers, right, the not on-chain yet developers, the ability to now go their existing tool set, but not only their existing knowledge, their existing code bases, and bring those on-chain. And I think that's extremely powerful. So that's going to really accelerate Arbitrum as we think about what does the next wave of adoption look like past the critical set of users that we know today, but really beyond that. And then the second thing I'll say is it also gives you a really good tool set for doing new and advanced things on chain. Advanced cryptography is a great example. You want to bring in things like fully homomorphic encryption. You want to bring in precompiles, things that aren't yet precompiles, like new curves or other cryptographic primitives that aren't yet supported by Ethereum. Your problem today is A, there's no code written in Solidity, and B, even if there was code written in Solidity, it wouldn't be efficient enough to run. With Stylus, you solve those both at once because you could just take your off-the-shelf C or C++ or Rust cryptographic library, run it directly on chain, and actually Stylus is 10x for computation, 10x more efficient. So you get 10x the mileage that you would get for the same computation, for the same gas, if you will. So I think that's another really important. And the other big one is AI. We're seeing a ton of interest in AI coming on chain, and today it's a lot of AI bots, but I think more and more people will want to do advanced computations on chain, and Stylus will be a really good friend there. So I'd encourage builders to go take a look at Stylus. And this could be builders, again, that are doing something that's just on chain today. They want to make it cheaper and they want to make it, more efficient for users to use, or they want to do something that's literally not possible on chain today and bring in Web 2 or, existing libraries, legacy libraries and Rust and C and C++, bring those on chain, do innovative new things on chain that aren't possible today, to do those in Stylus. And I'd encourage you all to take a look at that.
I love that. Last thing, Stephen, before you let us go, plug yourself, plug plug Offchain. Let us know where we can find all three of you guys.
Yes, so we're on Discord and Twitter. On Twitter, you can find Arbitrum account is just Arbitrum at Arbitrum. Offchain Labs is at Offchain Labs. And I am at Goldfed, SGOLDFED. And also, I mentioned we build not only contribute to Arbitrum and Offchain Labs, but we also build Prism. And you can find more about Prism on Twitter at Prylabs, PRYLABS. And there's a Discord for that as well. So feel free to find us there, look what we're building, reach out, engage in Discord, and let us know what you're building and how we as an ecosystem can be supportive.
Love that. Folks, what an episode with Stephen Goldfeder, CEO of Offchain Labs, the creators behind Arbitrum. Literally one of the best episodes we ever had on the Crypto News Pod. All world, huge shout out to Stephen and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.